This is a journey into sound.
The station with the best music. Best music.
I love the music.
Best music.
Future radio.
What's up? It's your boy DJ Kaushun here on Groove Cypher. We have a special interview edition of Groove Cypher tonight. We have Ahmad. What's up, Ahmad?
Peace, everybody. My name is Ahmad.
Ahmad, my bad. Ahmad, forgive me. I'm interviewing Ahmad here because the man here is he's a house enthusiast, and he's also very deep in the house culture. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I'm kind of late to house, if you will. I actually first had my first experience directly with house music in summer of last year in New York. I went to Soul Summit, which is a pretty big event. A lot of house heads are probably familiar with it. But for anyone who is not, you can Google it. It's huge. It's basically people come from all around the world to New York to experience the house vibe together.
Yeah.
And so I was invited by my host, and I met through watching, actually. I saw a person who I did not know. He was dancing, and he looked really cool. So I went over to him, and I asked him if he taught dance. And he said that he had in the past, and that he doesn't really teach now. And I asked if he would be willing to, school me a little bit, because his movements, my background before that is in martial arts from my father, and some choreography from being in a hip hop dance group. I was on a step team before, and I was pretty active in yoga and some other things. So I'm pretty familiar with body movement. So when I saw him dancing, he literally spoke to me, and I could tell from the movements that he was communicating something. And so that's what made me talk to him. And basically, that was my first experience with it. And since then, I've been, studying more, listening more. Right. Even practicing the dance more.
When you first, what kind of dance were you inspired by? What was inspiring about the movements of the dancing and the grooving? I mean, what was it about it that intrigued you?
It was it was the groove. So major shout out, no name dropping, but the person I'm talking about is Brian Polite. And if you don't know, he's from a collective called Afro Mosaic Soul, and they're pretty well respected on the East Coast for being pretty immersed in the culture deeply and representing it fully. Kind of like hip hop has its own culture, house has its own culture. Right. And so, indeed, after that day, we agreed to lessons, more or less. And so he's been a mentor to me, more or less, since then in the house culture. So we talk here and there. And, he was doing some capoeira movements.
Capoeira, what's crazy is capoeira influences both sides of the house and hip hop. You know, as far as the b-boy scene and just on house in general, house grooving and the culture of dancing in house. Capoeira is a big staple in both. That's one of the major martial arts that influenced a culture on both sides.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, capoeira is nice, man. All the movements, how they flow, how they move their arms, and how they, when they do those roundhouses like that, oh man.
Right. See, and watching it, I don't know the names. Yeah. But in talking to him, he told me, this is that and this is that. And then I'll point out, like you mentioned, groove too. He'll do some steps that I've seen randomly throughout, music videos growing up watching hip hop or whatever. But I saw him embody that in front of me. Right. So he was giving me different hip hop. He was giving me African movement in spiritual dance. Mm-hmm. It was a bunch of different stuff that he was doing to the beat, because obviously that's a part of it as well. So it was really soulful house that was playing. It was jazz kind of infused house, a lot of piano horns and stuff too. So you know, him being a dancer for years, now me in hindsight knowing, to me being a dancer, certain music or instruments will cause me to do certain movements. And so it was kind of like
Isn't that crazy? How like just the music will influence you on how you're moving, on how you move. Like certain beats make you just feel a different way. Certain beats make you feel more aggressive, or
right.
Certain, you know, but you won't be moving that way if it wasn't for the beat, though. That's just like, I think that's amazing.
Exactly.
I think that's
like dubstep. If I listen to dubstep, I dance completely different. Or if I listen to, like I just was dancing to Hail Mary, which you might not think you can dance to that, but from the tones and the bells, yeah. I do a certain type of choreography. I do a classic style vogue that's called just Old Way. Really, it's not called Old Way. It's kind of a name that caught on and really shouldn't have, but that is a popular name. It's really called performance. Pop, dip, spin, pop, dip, stretch.
Now, as far as the house community goes, voguing, what is voguing?
Voguing is,
for those that don't know,
voguing is properly a folk dance. It was created in the LGBT community. And I believe the late 50s, early 60s is when these houses were established. And houses are just organized groups, more or less families of small communities, really. A lot of them were trans women in the very beginning, and it was exclusively trans women. But nowadays, houses are, you know, everybody. It could be cisgender men and women, trans women, whatever. So that's where the houses started. And voguing came out of that because it was a space and a place for the trans women to display themselves in an arena and a space that was safe and congratulatory, even in the sense that there were literally awards for, you know, if you had the best gown for the evening or whatever category you were walking. And so voguing came out of that, but it developed obviously, and men do it, women do it, and there's different styles. And so there's a style that is unisex, if you will, and that's the style that I practice.
Let's kind of tap into this real quick. I mean, people have there's nothing wrong. I mean, obviously people are like, oh, well, if you listen to house, there's this comparison that just kind of gets on my nerves, and this is no offense to anybody. I'm actually offended about the whole statement. Oh, if you listen to house music, you're gay. You ever hear that kind of statement? Here, that's big. You know, there's people that think that if you listen to house music, you must be gay. And it's like, well, the gay community is a big part of it, but that doesn't mean that it has nothing to do with your sexual orientation. Listening to this style of music, it was just popular because of for whatever reasons. The reason why I like it is because you can dance. But a lot of Latinos, a lot of different cultures like it. People that like to dance like that kind of music. But that's what the misconception for a lot of people are. You want to tap into that? I don't know if you can tap in. Just kind of give what, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I can only give my perspective and my experience. I've definitely heard that, and it's an unfortunate thing to me.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as the roots of it, the history, there was a large LGBT creative influence that helped to get so-called house music, because at that time it didn't have a name, to get it popular, to get it popping in the clubs or whatever. But I think that it was just because a lot of times you'll see in the LGBT community there's an open-mindedness, and that open-mindedness is what allowed them to create music that was not on the radio. They were able or interested more so in other cuts. So they went digging. So, and they found, oh, here's a loop. Shout out Dilla. Here's a loop. I mean, that was before Dilla. Here's a loop that's hot. I'm finna play with this. And so if you mad at the fact that probably a gay person came up with that, I mean, that's something for you to look at within yourself. And it's really unfortunate because, like you said, you miss out on some hot music. Like, it's some of the dopest music.
When I first heard house, it was like when I first started DJing in the late 80s, 89. And it's just like, this is the shit. this is the shit. And Jungle Brothers, we was just playing that. Jungle Brothers was playing "Girl I House You," and then like Queen Latifah, like on the hip hop side of it. I was like, this shit's hot. It's like you like to groove. Like who doesn't like to groove? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, forget the whole sexual orientation thing. It's like this is for people that like to groove, that like to dance. You know what I'm saying? Back in the disco club, same kind of shit. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
anyway, so let's talk about where you're at now in the state of like you being a house head and you just being a music head and just a cultural, learn about the culture of dance and just where you at. How does like house music and maybe say what you're trying to do with yourself in life have coincide? Like how does that coincide together?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I wasn't prepared for that question.
That's what we do. That's what we do in an interview. Those kind of interviews we're making you think right now. That's good because we want the audience to know why you're going to be hosting as well the Groove Cypher. So that's a question. These are questions that got you off kilter for a reason because I want you to think about what's going on. I want them to hear you in your natural state of being.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, house really came at a time that I think it was right on time. Like
as far as your life goes, as far as like where you're at in your life.
Yeah, because it helped me to tap into my my culture, and we were talking about that before too. Like even I didn't consciously realize it, but a month or so to a month, maybe 2 months ago, I found out that my paternal lineage is in Ghana. And so when I thought about that in relationship to the types of music and the type of instruments and the type of arrangements that my ear naturally liked, it really made sense to me why. Because it had a direction or a beginning, a genesis. So I began to understand why I like these types of beats and these arrangements. And it was through house because, like I said, similar to hip hop, they take different loops and parts of songs that it might be an instrument, it might be a vocal, it might be whatever it is that was interested, and they take it and play with it. But they take from everything from jazz or soul or it could be any type of cut, and you get these different sounds and you mix them and you play with them and you get to literally do that. And for me, like I said, I was always into movement and dancing and choreography. So for house, it was like a bridge before I even knew it was a bridge to like my heritage in Africa, which is something that I've been studying more since I found out a couple months ago. And again, it redirected me to an Afro beat, if you will, track that I was listening to earlier too. So it keeps reasserting itself, and so it's relevant for me. So I feel like I can talk about it. So I am.
Yo, so when you listen to other types of music and when you're just say, throughout your day, what do you think about that's like, man, I wish things would be more different so we can have more events, or like as far as like where things are at right now in the state of Stockton, just in your in your opinion, like you wish there was more things as far as just relevant to what we're, as far as house music, the culture, like what there needs to be more what?
I'm looking around. I would just say just exposure first, like just little jams maybe here and there, maybe some cool little free stuff in the park, real roots, and and if there's a following, we can build off of that.
Yeah,
and do focus jams, maybe do invite only type stuff, or do a night at one of the clubs out here, but it's not a lot of clubs out here. I don't know. We got to probably make something brand new.
What do you want? What are people going to be looking forward to you talking about on these next few the Groove Cyphers you're hosting?
Okay, so for me, I think the most interesting things to me about house are the DJs and the kind of anthropology of the music.
So, are you going to be having? Do you want DJs to submit mixes to you? I mean, are you?
That would be dope. I'm definitely interested in new DJs, current DJs, especially anybody local in the whole San Joaquin Valley to the Bay Area, but particularly more so San Joaquin Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely house DJs, house music.
Do you have an email where they can send you stuff yet, or do they have?
You know, I will put one up, but for now you can send it to my private email, which is which is A-M like Michael, A-J-I-D like David. That's A.Majid @gmail.com.
Okay. So, is there any particular topics you want to talk about before we get off the air? Is there anything special you need to say? Any shout outs? Any big ups to anybody?
Yeah, one special shout out. I did not get to meet the man, but he was very influential. May he rest in peace, Mr. Voodoo Ray. Another shout out to the team at Cielo in New York, DJ Tony Touch, for holding it down, keeping the house vibe, Afro Mosaic Soul. Big shout out to the homie Rashad Pridgeon, holding it down here on the left coast. The West Coast. I'm gonna link up with you out in Oakland. Househeads, link up. We finna do some shit.
All right, my brother. It was great interviewing you. And next week we'll be having some shows with. We gotta come. I'm gonna come up with a good name with him. I'm about to call him. I wasn't gonna call him. What was the name we were telling you? You were
Master of
Motion.
Motion, that was one.
Yeah, that was Master of Motion, I thought.
Yeah, and then the other one was Strategy.
Yeah, but Master of Motion, Motion Master.
Motion Master, the Master of Motion. I like that too.
Yeah, that's hot. So we'll be talking to you guys soon. Until next Groove Cypher. Peace out.
Peace.
This is a journey into sound.
The station with the best music. Best music.
I love the music.
Best music.
Future Alternative Radio.